Happy Monday, 5th graders! Do you remember how last week in Stargirl we read how Stargirl sent Leo a Valentine and signed it, wrote, "I love you," and wrote her name with icons for Stargirl? So I thought it'd be fun this week to learn idioms that have the word heart in them, since we're in the portion of the book where we know that Stargirl fancies Leo, and you might suspect that the feelings are mutual. But let's look at the idiom bleeding heart. So literally we have a heart that's bleeding. Maybe I actually should switch it this way. And you know, this idea that you would bleed or make your heart bleed is, you know, kind of dramatic, and that's not something you want to do. And so if a person, so this is actually an idiom to describe a person. So a person can be a bleeding heart. And if you describe someone as a bleeding heart, you are actually criticizing them for being sympathetic toward people who are poor and suffering without doing anything practical to help. So if someone describes someone as a bleeding heart and they say, "Oh, you're such a bleeding heart. You're always helping stray dogs," or you feel sorry for them, but you don't actually do anything to help. So that's kind of the idea. It's a criticism because the person is always being sympathetic, but they're not actually helping. And sometimes we use this idiom without the helping part, like just to describe somebody who's extremely sympathetic. Maybe it's like they show too much sympathy when they really don't need to. It's that kind of idea, like they're too caring in a way that's not good or helpful, maybe like when people don't deserve it or something like that. So that's kind of the idea of this idiom, bleeding heart. It is a criticism, so it's not necessarily a positive idiom. It's a criticism of somebody else. Okay, and whether that criticism is merited or they deserve it, that's a different story, but it's a criticism that somebody's saying towards somebody else. Okay, so here's an example from our novel, or an idea from our novel. Stargirl is a bleeding heart and cheers for all of the teams, especially ones that are losing. She feels badly for the losing team. So, you know, she's such a caring person, and in this case, you know, the kids are offended by when she cheers for the other team. They don't like that. She's supposed to cheer for their team. And she's a bleeding heart. And then when she does cheer for their team, like at the basketball game with Ron Kovac as this all-star, when she cheers for them when they're losing, when they're not in the mood, she also gets criticized for that. So poor Stargirl, she just really can't win right now with the kids at the school. Okay, so we're going to work this week on a suffix, ward, which means direction. Direction, okay? So forward. See, forward has word in it. And so what does this mean, forward? Sentence, even though times are tough, let's continue to move forward and work hard. What does forward mean? Towards a place or position that is in front of you. Okay, for means like in front or before. Forward means towards greater progress, improvement, or development. So if you move forward, let's say the basketball player moves forward, they go in front. Forward are positions in basketball, and I think soccer as well. And if you're also progressing or trying to move forward, you're trying to make greater progress or improvement. So like this is a sentence here. We know times are tough. It's been hard working during a pandemic, but we try to move forward as best as we can. Okay. Now this week we're going to work on the Latin root vis, vid, which means see, look at, observe. Okay, it's the Latin root because you might recognize the word in Spanish. It's the same, like visión. Okay, so today we have the word visible. Now, we learned able before, able to, and vis means look at, to see. So if something's visible, it means you can see it. You're able to see it. Something that is visible can be seen. Okay, an effect that is visible is great enough to be noticed. So this is more about someone's action. So if someone does something great, it's visible. That means people notice it. So here, a sentence, the moon is visible on a clear night sky. Okay? Now, for the second definition, an effect that is visible is great enough to be noticed. There was a visible change in his attitude. So, let's say some more examples could be your teachers really appreciate when you are visible in Zoom and they can see your entire face so we can see if you are reacting and understanding the information. So that's great. Now, somebody who, let's say, what else can be visible? Well, let's say if you're making a visible change, then people will notice it. Let's say my parents are proud of me because they've noticed a visible change in my work and they notice that I am getting up earlier. Now, this week we're going to work on metaphors. You remember that last week we worked on similes, and we've been doing similes all year, and there are a lot of similes in Stargirl, which I'll continue to review with you. But today, or this week, let's work on metaphors. So, similarly, metaphors also compare two things that are different, because similes do that too. So, metaphors compare two things that are different in most ways, but are the same in one important way. So, it's comparing two things, just like similes. They're comparing two things that are different, but they do have something they share. The most significant difference between a simile and a metaphor is that it does not use the word like or as. Okay, so it's a little harder because a simile is easy to recognize, because a simile always has either like or as. A metaphor is going to be the same, except it won't have like or as. So it's a little bit harder sometimes to identify, but if it's comparing two things that are very different but are similar in a way, or then it's a metaphor. So let's look at some examples. Oops. Malik is a wizard with computers. And usually we'll have, sometimes it has is, okay. So Malik is a wizard with computers. So he's not literally a wizard, but it's comparing this person Malik as being really good at using computers. Amelia's room is a pigsty. So it's saying that her room is a pigsty, and we know pigsties are generally messy. And so it's saying this metaphor is explaining that her room is messy. Okay, but it's a bit more dramatic to say Amelia's room is a pigsty. Next example, our dad is a bear in the morning. What could that mean? It's not saying he's literally a bear. It's just describing probably his mood as a bear. Bears are, they hibernate. Maybe he's quite sleepy in the morning, and maybe he's not in a bit of a grumpy mood. Some tips: a metaphor states that one thing is something else. So it's saying it is that, even though it's not really that, right? Malik is not really a wizard. Amelia's room isn't really a pigsty. The dad is not really a bear. It's just comparing, making a comparison. And unlike a simile, the words like, as, and like are not used. So you don't see the word like or as, okay? Authors use metaphors to make their writing more interesting and descriptive. That's why they use it. There are metaphors in Stargirl as well. So let's review one so you can try on your own. Which sentence has a metaphor? A, the tree is a giant in the forest compared to the others. Okay, I see that the tree is being compared to a giant. The tree is as big as a giant compared to the others. Well, this is also comparison, but it has as, so this one's a simile. So it's not B. The tree is like a giant in the middle of the forest. Okay, here's another comparison, but it has like, right? It's showing that the tree is like a giant. So these B and C are actually similes. A is the metaphor. The tree is a giant in the forest. Okay, so you're going to do a couple of those each day this week to practice identifying metaphors, and then you can try to incorporate some in your own writing. Awesome job, fifth graders. Let's have a great week. Week 9.